Good evening, councillors, and good evening to everyone in the gallery and those who are joining by Zoom. Recordings of council meetings or parts thereof cannot be copied, recorded, reproduced, or retransmitted without the prior written consent of the General Manager. The meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on council's website, and persons attending the meeting should refrain from making any inflammatory comments. Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri, Gundungurra and Darug peoples, and respects the history and culture of the elders, both past and present. And I'll ask Pastor Toogood from the Adventist Church to have our prayer. Thank you. Thank you.
Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all gathered here today for your many abundant blessings. And thank you for life itself, for a measure of health to fulfill our callings, and for sustenance and friendship. Thanks for freedom to embrace you or to reject you, and thank you for loving us even so, your boundless and gracious nature. In Scripture you said that we should obey governing authorities. They promote peace, order, justice. I pray for our mayor, the various city officials and the assembled council. Please would you grant them wisdom. We have ideas, vision, hints, instructions. We have talents, ability and time to work. Help us to understand. And thank you that you will be with us. Father God, just wanted to say personally also, it's a privilege to be here and meet folks who know the need for freedom and the need for responsibilities and boundaries. And I pray that you would bless them in the way that they organise our society. It's a beautiful place to live. In Jesus' name, amen.
Councillors and ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to observe a minute's silence to recognise the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. We send our condolences to the royal family, and condolence books will be available in the library and at council chambers. So I'd ask you for a minute's silence and reflect upon the gracious Majesty. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. The record of attendance, we have two councillors who have asked for leave of absence. That's the Deputy Mayor Andrew McKibben and Councillor Bruce Watt. Can I have a mover and a second for that those leave of absence? For Hayden, Councillor Tucker. All in favour? Are there any declarations of interest? No. Okay. Presentation this evening will be from representative of ADCO. That's Timothy Cricknell and Rosalina Robinson. So.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the Mayor, thank you to the General Manager and the councillors and the people in the gallery for allowing us to present today. Yeah, we do have some slides. While that's happening, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Tim Neal, work for ACTO, and I'm the project director for the Central West Pump Hydro project. We've got Rosalina with us today, and we've also got some team members on Zoom, which are just out of interest watching the events today, and also there in case there are any questions which are about my pay grade. So we only have a very short time slot of 15 minutes, so I'll try and get through the slides pretty quickly. But if there is anything that anyone would like to take a deeper dive into, we're always happy to come back and do that with any individual on any topic. So please keep that in mind. Okay, yeah, I also would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on today. And I'd also like to pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are present today, and all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the nation as well. The agenda today is really just broken it down into 3 sections. So we'll give you an introduction of ACCO and the project, just give you a bit of a status as to where we're at and what's coming up next, and then just a Q&A session at the end. ACCO Australia has been operating for over 75 years and 60 years within Australia. A lot of you might know ACCO from the original business that they came out with, which was to supply and provide temporary site accommodation. So people talk about ACCO hubs. They've diversified since then. They own and operate gas asset in WA, as well as power stations in WA and South Australia. The Sydney team is very much so focused on the project I'm about to speak about, which is the Central West Pumped Hydro Project. There's a map there that shows the Central West Renewable Energy Zone, the so-called RESs that are being established by the state government. And you'll see that the Central West Pumped Hydro Project is outside that RES. That doesn't particularly matter. In fact, it can be quite advantageous because it's located on the very strong 330 kV infrastructure, which really is the link between that RES zone, which is essentially like a new power station with renewable energy, to the demand centre, which is back in Sydney. So this project will really be, it's an energy storage project, which is like a balancing of the grid. So when the renewables are producing a lot of energy within that zone, then we will have essentially excess energy in the system, and we can take some of that energy out to pump water up into the higher reservoir. And when things are the reverse, it's nighttime, so the solar's not working and the wind might be down and the extra energy is needed to meet demand, then we can dispatch that energy from the energy storage facility. Just honing in on the project itself, you can see it is an upper and lower reservoir. The upper reservoir is a turkey's nest type reservoir. The lower reservoir takes advantage of the natural valley there, so there'll be an embankment dam wall, as you can see. And then there's a penstock, which is essentially a tunnel. We're actually using a surface penstock, so it'll be a steel pipe, essentially, which can carry the water in both directions from between those two reservoirs. The difference in height level is about 360 metres. And in that upper reservoir, when it's full, we've got 2,600 megawatt hours of energy, which is probably about, we've got 8 hours of supply at 325 megawatts. So an average coal-fired power station will be about 1,000 megawatts. So this has got that capacity over 8 hours of probably about a third of the coal-fired power station. Honing in a little bit more there, you can see that there's a layout there with the two reservoirs. We've got yellow dots representing houses, which are not part of the project, and we've got two orange dots there, which represent houses that have an association with the project or an agreement with the project. There's between the generation facility, which is at the lower reservoir there, we have, as you can see, a link which is an underground 330 kV line. Now it's going off to the left of screen as you're seeing it, and that goes, that's an underground cable. So we've modified from an original proposal, which was an overhead cable. So that's about 6 kilometres in distance. It'll go across the Great Western Highway and up to existing 330 kV infrastructure. So there'll be a substation just built adjacent to the existing 330 line. On the other side of the reservoir system, we'll also need a pipeline which will carry water. That'll be an underground pipeline that'll carry water from the Fish Creek. There'll be an initial top-up, an initial fill, and then there'll be top-ups required year to year. And the top-ups are required in years where the evaporation is greater than the supply that comes in from the rainwater. What we are doing with the Fish Creek, and we do have a more detailed slide on this, is providing transparency through there. So what comes in at the top of the Frypan Creek, what comes in at the top of the dam for the reservoir there will be fed out at the bottom of the reservoir. Just honing in on that transmission connection, you can see that pink line there shows the proposed route from the lower reservoir, the generation side of the lower reservoir there, right through to that existing transmission line, which is shown in the picture on the top right. And the picture at the bottom shows sort of typical land that that buried cable will go through. Being a buried cable, the easement width is much narrower than it would need to be if it was an overhead line. Of course, you've also got the loss of the visual impact as well. Just on the regulatory approval process, we're in the process at the moment of finalising the EIS. So we did get a SEARS report from the state government, who's the consenting authority for this project. And we're addressing all the requirements that have been set out in that SEARS through the EIS. The EIS, we do plan to submit that to the state government, Department of Planning and Environment this year, and that'll go on public exhibition early next year. That's a bit of an outline. I won't go through that in detail, but the EIS structure there, so the various chapters, the technical study reports, a lot of work that's gone into that, site work and report writing. So we've looked at all the potential impacts. We've looked at ways that we can minimise those impacts, or at least mitigate them to the maximum extent. And the appendices are pulled out there as well. Hand over to Rosaline to finish off the last few slides.
Okay. Hi there. So just on the environmental assessment, so we're pretty enthusiastic. We're nearly done. So we'll have all of that information available. We're sharing some of that in some upcoming community information days. So the early findings and whatnot for the study. So we're hoping to have that, as Tim said, totally ready to submit to the government by the end of the year. So with Christmas holidays and whatnot, the public exhibition phase will kick over into the new year. And we'll make sure that everyone is notified of when that public exhibition is due to happen and it is open, along with all the regulatory requirements. So we have quite a large list of people that we keep up to date with those things. So really very close. We're looking forward to it. And we'll be sharing quite a bit of information at the open days. So water is a really important topic because it's a hydro project, and sometimes you might imagine there's a lot of water required, but these projects are actually quite water efficient. So what happens is you need an initial fill for the project, so one dam full of water, and that water effectively gets recycled up and down over the 50-year plus life of the project. It's 3.3 gigalitres, and it's proposed to source that water via a buried pipeline to the Fish River. And because the Fish River flows are very important, both environmentally and for downstream users, a very large DPE, which is the Department of Planning and Environment model, was used to actually work out exactly how to protect all of those important users, including the environment. So this study will be sharing early results with at our open days, but effectively the study goes into great detail to set out water to be protected for all downstream users, and then over and above on top of that, extra water to protect for the environment. And all of this water, and then that comes up with what they call a commence to pump rate. So that means that the project would only propose to take water once that commence to pump rate had been reached. So that's going to be available to share a little bit more. And then for operational water, depending on the weather of the year, there may be up to 400 megalitres per year required, and that water would be sourced just per the normal water market, as any user would go ahead and do that. So there won't be any extra stress or pressure on the system there. So that's a little bit about the environment on water. So I think onto community benefits. Do you want me to keep going? Keep going. But from the benefits perspective, I won't labour on too much, but really the main thing from a local perspective are really working on that intersection up the top there. So that's for those of you familiar with the Caltex coming down off that hill, the project entrance will turn onto Molybdenite Road, heading towards Bathurst. So there'll be quite a good upgrade there to make that safer. There'll be a sealing of the Molybdenite Road all the way through. So we'll actually have a new private access for a period down the Molybdenite Road that'll then go back to the council there. We're also working on some extensive environmental offset areas, so in perpetuity, so around the project. So there's around 600 hectares of that. What else are we doing? Partnerships. So we're doing partnerships with potential partnerships with local landowners on restoration activities along Frying Pan Creek. And then I think going broader, which I think is important, but is really around that clean, reliable energy. So the project will provide a lot of energy. So for, as you see there, for over 153,000 homes, and it is significant investment in this region. So whilst it is in that Bathurst Council area, we do believe that there'll be a great opportunity there to share that investment over the three surrounding the local councils as well. Okay. Now, community engagement. So ACCO have a community investment fund. So we're in our second year of that now. It's just a fund that's been set up in perpetual over the life of the project to offer grants of up to $10,000. So those grants have actually been going on for the last year. So we've opened up our office in Bathurst, and there's, I think, around 9 recipients last year, and they open again every year, and that's due to be open this week, I believe, so for the next round. So we let everyone know, certainly let council know around the opening of those, and that's open to the Lithgow, Oberon and Bathurst local government area. And probably the most important thing, I think, is around our process. So the development phase of this project does take quite some time. So we've been working on the project for over a year, and we still have over a year to go in the development phase. And so being present and being available to learn and listen from the community and then go from there is really important to us. We do have an open office in the Bathurst, in the town there. So there's a lady there based out of there 4 days a week. And we certainly really welcome and encourage visitors. We also hold community information sessions. So we've had 2 rounds of those, and we're on our 3rd that's happening this weekend. And we're holding those in 3 separate locations: Bathurst, Yetholme and O'Connell. And ideally we'll get lots of people to visit, but if not, we also want to open the door and say, look, we understand sometimes people are busy, and I think long weekends and whatnot. So we're more than happy to catch up at different times that suit different people. So I think really it has been helpful being involved with the community. We've made lots of changes to the project already. So Tim talked about one around the buried transmission line that came from feedback from the community. We've also been able to make somewhat smaller changes, but also very important around biodiversity. So changing locations of the upper reservoir to avoid biodiversity areas, and also the new access road. So the Molybdenite Road, for those that are familiar with it, has some very old mature trees along it. So rather than potentially go into that space and need to trim some of those trees, we're actually creating a private road beside that will then be offered back to the council after the construction phase. So timeline, I might let you.
Finish off. I think this is our last slide, but yeah, obviously still got the way to go through the development phase. The plan at this stage is that we would begin construction in the early part of 2023. And the construction phase is due to go for about a span of 3 years. And so we would be looking at the first operation of the facility around 2025, 2026. Sorry, 2026, 2027. Yeah. So probably 4 years to run at least from this point in time before we consider operation. I think that's really all we had. So I managed to stick pretty closely to the 15 minutes, and apologies, that was a very quick run through. Like I said, if there are any other topics that people would like to dive into a little bit more deeply, then we're always free to pop over. But you know, anytime we can set up a meeting, or we could do it on Teams or Zoom or some other way. Yeah. So if you're okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Councillors? Councillor Hayden.
Yeah, as you're aware, residents of Bathurst and Oberon are quite concerned about the impact this is going to have on our Fish River as well as Frying Pan Creek. We've got families of butterfly all along the river up Frying Pan Creek. We've got freshwater shrimp. We've got freshwater mussels that are just starting to breed up now. Since our last drought, and now that we've had some rain, they've given the opportunity to start breeding. With your idea of taking your amount of megalitres out of the river to fill up this reservoir, what are you going to do when the next drought comes and there is no water in the river? And then what is going to happen with the runoff from your lower reservoir when we have excess rain and it's got contaminants inside from the arsenic or any of the cadmium or anything else like that that could be in the water that can be damaging these ecosystems?
So in terms of the first part of your question about water, we have, as Rosalina said, we've done very detailed studies with data from over the last 100 years. And there's certainly an allocation there for environmental flows, and we won't be starting our pumps to pump water into our facility during those drier parts of the year. We do, if you're happy to, I know we've got a poster which shows some of this information in a bit more detail, but those environmental flows will continue, and we won't be pumping during times of drought where there is no rain during those periods. So those different species that you mentioned, they're considered as part of that design for our pumping.
So what is your answer to if there's an overflow from your lower reservoir that's full of arsenic or any other compounds from the past mining that was held up in Mount Denison? What's going to happen to the species in the lower river?
We're doing some geotechnical investigation. We've done one round of that today, and we're doing a further round right at this very moment, and we're seeing exactly what rocks, what geology is under the surface there to understand exactly what is going to be exposed when we do our excavation for the upper and lower dam. And through that, we'll be doing tests to see exactly what solubles could be in, and we will yeah, once we have the answers to that information, we'll address that and ensure that there are no contaminants that put any species.
I can probably add just a little bit of colour from an assessment perspective. So there are the Fish River and Frying Pan Creek do have naturally elevated beddles, which is I think what you're referring to already. Just in a couple of areas. So we'll be making sure that we don't add anything to that. So there's a lot of data in the environmental report that explains what the water quality is like today in both locations. And it'll be, the onus is on the project to explain in the EIS that won't be changing. And that is 100% what the plan is to do. So we're not expecting to bring in fresh contaminants to those creek systems.
So you don't think by your blasting to make the first nest at the top that's going to expose the arsenic and past mining benches, that when you're running your water up and down the hill, that it isn't going to be creating a contaminant, that if there is an overflow, it will then go down the Frying Pan Creek and it can contaminate the Fish River, which is then another water source that's going to continue all the way through out into the sea eventually.
Yeah, if that was the case, that wouldn't be acceptable. So 100%. So the excavation activity have to 100% be able to demonstrate that water quality is maintained, and that's certainly what the IS will be explaining in great detail independently.
Thank you. Councillor Pember.
Yes, you said that you made modifications to the project for yes iron, by putting the power lines underground. So how will you achieve that? Is that going to be tunneled or are you going to blast an excavate?
No, the 330 kV, sorry, the transmission line that takes the power from the facility to their line will be an underground cable, which is just put in a trench.
So you
And
will
that-
blast the trench in?
No, the trench will be normally less than a metre deep. And we're doing that geotechnical testing at the moment, but we do very confidently expect that that can be just actually taken with, in all cases, with either a digger that will just scrape it out, or if there are rocks, we can use a jackhammer style fitting on the.
So there'll be no blasting,
I don't believe there'll be any blasting for the cable.
because it makes it look like it's a beautiful field, you know, at the end of the slot, but to achieve that, it's going to be a mess, you know, to get there. So that's why I'm just checking, either you're tunneling or you're blasting, and how do you get all those little figures?
Yeah,
That distance, you're gonna have to take them in trucks and.
there will have to be some tunneling in some areas, like under the highway
Great
and,
Western Highway,
and
yeah.
so on. But the majority of the 6 kilometres of line will be excavation with a trenching.
Okay. So with that modification, why would you not consider putting the penstock pipe underground for O'Connell? And I live in O'Connell and I can see Mount Tennyson. Most people who live in O'Connell can see Mount Tennyson, and that will be a new feature on our landscape if it's exposed. And I don't think painting it green is sort of a game changer.
Yeah, we're looking at various penstock options at the moment, including surface or tunnel, but it's looking at this stage like the tunneled option is very much more expensive. I'm talking, you know, very many multiples of what's already a very expensive piece of infrastructure.
But if you have a surface penstock, then what is the noise level that we will experience in the valley? I know that the pump is going to be underground, but that penstock is 5 metres in diameter. So what sort of noise levels will we experience in the valley?
Yes.
I'm just saying that, but so the noise impacts of the project is not noticeable at all at O'Connell, and there's independent, again, studies around that. So that will be presented on the open day to a small degree, but in full extent at the public exhibition and in any detailed conversations. And from the visual assessment as well, we've also got some at the open day we can share, but we'll happily share materials with you guys after this meeting next Monday. the view sheds as well around the different vantage points from all sorts of places. So, whilst the penstock, and I understand what you say, you can't just be green and hope for the best, but there's also the tree line as well, and the actual location of where the penstock is on Mount Tennyson. So when we, get the opportunity to show you, we'll be able to show how that is actually, very minimal, view.
I'll take you outside the fire shed. to show you.
What was that?
I'll take you outside the fire shed on Sunday.
Yes.
I think it's a serious,
It's
it
really-
impacts all of our economy.
Yeah, it's really important that we have to put everything on the table. So I think that would be really good. And it's certainly a really important issue for us as a project to not only be able to talk about it, but show it independently. So that's what we're aiming to start doing on the weekend, but obviously we'll have a lot more work to do that through the EIS and more.
Tim, I have a question, the second expand, is that going to affect the ridge line, the natural ridge line of the Mount Tennyson, and will it be visible from O'Connell?
There will be build up around the edges
Mhm.
and we excavate into the middle, but we've actually taken advantage of the topography there to essentially reshape that. I know that we've done a visual assessment from a number of points.
Yeah, we don't expect you'll be able to see the, because it is, as Tim said, sort of like follows down into the, natural shape of that landscape. So that, yeah, we don't expect that the, upper reservoir will be visible at all from every location.
We can get you we can actually take a point of view from anywhere and show what the ultimate result will look like in terms of visual impact. So, yeah, we're
I
happy
think
to
that's
do that.
important for the community, and also I think the council will understand what the visual impact is. Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Penny?
Yeah, I do. This is a new project for you, or this is gas. It's pumped hydro, and we have another pumped hydro projects that have much lighter profile and many experts on it. Snow 2.0. It's well over budget.
Mhm.
It's 10 years late. So why would we think that ACO has the expertise that clearly lots of experts have had, and you've never done this before? Why would we have the confidence in you for this project?
Yeah, I mean, ACO does have electricity assets worldwide and in Australia, but you're right, we do own gas infrastructure as well. It's a really good question because I look at Snowy 2.0 and I think, we're all taxpayers and we're seeing billions of dollars there being spent over budget. One thing I can say from what I understand on that project is it seems like announcements were made before details were well understood. And it seems in politics, particularly federally, there's often a need to get the announcement out without the detail being there to support that. I think what we're taking here is a very measured approach. We've actually got a very experienced contractor on board at this stage just to help us to go through the details of the design. Like I said, we're doing what we call value engineering. So we're looking at different options for slight variations on penstock and also the housing for the generator, which is quite and the turbines is quite a big reinforced concrete structure that sits in that lower dam. We're looking at various options for the look of that, what sort of shape it will be and so on. So we're trying to get to a point with our contractor that if this project does get to what we call financial close, we have a very detailed design. The price that they've given us to build it is going to have a high degree of certainty with it. And that we can have a lot of confidence that they're going to stick to that price because we can't keep dipping our hands in pockets like.
But the difference is with no 2.0, they already have 2 reservoirs, everything's underground.
Yeah.
You're actually trying to achieve water. You're not actually there. You sort of got to get some water from
We
here,
do.
and I've got to get here, and I've got to dig a reservoir to create it. So this
Yeah.
the actual location doesn't make any sense other than Mount Tennyson with next to a KV line.
I mean, it's got that great infrastructure next to it.
It's a KB line.
Yeah, it's the 330
That's the only
kV line.
infrastructure.
Yeah. I mean, it is a very good site for this type of.
Did you
facility.
investigate any other sites before you made that decision with that particular one?
I don't know that history going back that far, but personally, but I know that Pura, who were the original developers of the project, have a number of sites and, but
I believe you
Particularly-
did, but we've never been told what those sites were.
Yeah, councillor Trevor, that's the last question. I'll move on to councillor McCarthy. Once it's saying.
My question is just, where should pick up, from the water from the Fish River? On your map, it showed Taranow Road, but I couldn't pick it on the plan, that was all. Where do you intend taking the water from? What location?
yeah. Roseland?
It's off one of the private land holdings on, that road. So yeah, it's, not too far from the Loxley community. I don't know how to explain the exact location, but I can send you a map. Is the map there? There it is, there, the yellow dot.
And then somewhere there you have it, Taranow Road along there.
Yeah, so the rail siding you can see winding around up the top there. Yeah. But I'm more than happy to try and send a
So-
better map by email.
Is it down towards Taranow Forest or further in?
Kimberly might be able to explain it better. Are you on the line, Kimberly?
I'll just have to stop sharing to get her.
Oh, no, that's all right. Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah,
it's like
I'll
just
send-
sending that.
I'll take an action to send you a,
Thank you.
that has it more detailed.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation too.
Appreciate it.
And I'm sure you're looking forward to the weekend to go back home.
We
Yes,
are.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hope to see them. Thank you.
Move on to questions from the public. Public gallery is open to all members of the community. And the community has been given the opportunity to ask questions at the commencement of the council meeting, and the mayor is to ask for questions from the gallery prior to the commencement of the ordinary meeting. Members of the public wishing to address council are permitted to do so, provided the following guidelines are adhered to. The person asking the question at the council meeting must clearly state their name and in what capacity they are acting. The person asking a question is acting for another person or organisation as an agent. They must advise council if they have their prior consent and authority. Questions from the public is not an opportunity for debate with elected representatives or staff. It's an opportunity for the community to ask a question in relation to an issue, to put a point of view relating to an issue that may be causing interest or concern. Due to time constraints, a time frame of 3 minutes per speaker is allocated. All questions and comments must be directed through the mayor, and in the instance of a question, if it cannot be answered, it will be taken on notice and a response given within a reasonable period. This is the only opportunity for a community member to address council during an ordinary meeting. Are there any questions from the gallery?
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Frank O'Connor, representing the city. I've just got a question regarding state forest. There's been some recent changes in the last 18 months. Regarding regenerative projects within the state forest. And they involve either solar or wind farm. And they are the state's residents, so which is basically why I'm reading it is a company can come into the Oberon Shire as there's other areas that have been nominated, and the expressions of interest posed yesterday. There's a number of expressions of interest in the Oberon Shire, and then they can put wind farms in the state forest. I'm just wondering whether the council is over that and over that topic and how they're approaching it. Because unlike where we've been the last 20, 30 years with wind farms, which is quite divisive with community, this one is they'll come in and do it. And the community won't have much say. So I think the overall Shire Council should be taking a leading role in a number of areas. But you know, I'll leave that question.
council has certainly been made aware of the stance from the opportunities that may present themselves in state forest land. At this point in time, we haven't been advised of any that have been supported, lodged, and we're sort of in a little bit of a holding pattern until we get some idea about what or if those present themselves.
Yeah, I think with respect to the problem with that is this can be such a significant development that within 18 months, it's gone through public, being passed, being put out to these companies, expressions of interest. The council and other councils in other areas, the same, the state forests really need to get on the front foot. And because these companies are on the front foot, because otherwise they'll end up with 10 or 20 developments here that could really diminish the landscape, and not only that, just diminish revenues that the council receive, and there's many things.
Frank, we were made aware of this probably 3 months ago, 4 months ago. The forestry come and had a regular meeting with us. None of us were particularly impressed by what the plan was. But my view is that we need to hold both forest and any entity, including the state government, to account for due process to happen and community consultation to happen. Now, if these have become developments of state significance, that is particularly important because all the decision-making powers rest with the state. Now, we can influence some of that, but like a lot of entities, particularly state ones, they tend not to necessarily, will tend to cut corners going. And what we will do is try and influence that and demand due process is followed and demand that community is controlled as widely. That's any more?
From what Frank said, the pressure on our land values, might be high.
Well, these are in state forests you're talking about.
No, remember when Jason said that
Yeah.
someone has to then provide
Yes.
alternative land for the forestry.
Yeah.
It's going to affect us and an offset there.
But not only that, it's transmission line. Like if they have one in each of our state forests got transmission lines. You've also got, they want a buffering zones, and most of those companies want to also take in farming land. It'll be, to me, I can just see how.
And
These companies are.
and until we know the scope, the location, the intent, and the design, we can lobby our state member. That's currently the deputy premier. But that's about the limit of it. I don't like the proposal myself. I agree with you there. But we're also required to ourselves to follow due process. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, everyone. Those who wish to review, please do so. Item 8, confirmation of minutes. And the recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 15th of August 2022 be confirmed. Do I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Hayden, Councillor Tucker, Councillor Hayden,
There's nothing there.
Councillor Tucker. Board in favour? Pass. Mayoral minutes 0901. The recommendation is that the mayoral minute be received as information. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Pemba. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, nothing to add, just we had a busy month and that's it.
Councillor Hayden.
No.
Sorry, Councillor Pemba. Sorry for saying it.
Exactly the same, very busy month, and I think of note was that Global Power Generation Australia avoiding having the meetings with the community. I noted in your, which is following on from previous comments that we've just seen.
There's an interesting tete-a-tete going on there.
But yes,
Any other,
great report.
councillor Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question on page 9, the first item of the page. It talks about Department of Planning and Environment seeking follow-up commitment from council, progress funding under the Safe and Secure Water Program and confirm commitment as a project. Now, I don't recall that program, and I'm just curious as to what it is, what the project is, and what's council's involvement or potential involvement.
Through the chair, under the Safe and Secure Fund, there is currently options available for a co-investment from state and council about high priority infrastructure within towns and cities. Our two high priorities are our STP and our water treatment plant. As you're aware, we're concentrating on our STP at the moment, and we're working with the state government to progress potential funding should we need to replace the water treatment plant. So it's looking at that commitment from Oberon to continue to do that.
So some of our funding, and obviously the sewer treatment plant is the one on the go at the moment, but there's potential for either current funding or potentially more funding from this Safe and Secure Water Program for that project. Is that correct? Good. Thank you. That's all.
Anyone else? All those in favour? Motion passed. No notices of motion. Item 11.01. The Central West Joint Organisation Conference and recommendations that council note the reports from the Central New South Wales Joint Organisation Conference on the 25th of August in Orange. Councillor Hayden, Councillor Turnbull.
Yes, it was an enjoyable conference. I think all councillors should attend, and that's all I have to say.
Councillor Turnbull.
Yes, I just want to say thank you to Mayor Cum for getting us all involved to go along as councillors, and it was really informative, and I look forward to more of the sessions that we're getting through. Thank you.
Would you have something you want to say, Councillor?
It was good to get the full report. That was good reading.
Personally, I was really impressed by that conference. People got involved. Some really interesting concepts and projects were discussed. I certainly got a lot out of it as well.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, anyone else? All those in favour? Pass unanimously. Item 11.02, the Oberon Business and Tourism Association meeting. And that is the recommendation is that the report item 11.02 is received information. Councillor Hayden. Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, the report reads itself.
Straightforward, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I'd just like to make a correction to one line item there, and that's halfway down on page 14. Julie Stott has not been appointed to upgrade the Visitor Information Centre website. Firstly, there's no Visitor Information website. There is a Visit Oberon website, and Julie Stott is not doing either of those. He has assisted in a number of events, number of workshops around websites, council websites, to make sure that they're as they should be.
I did note that, but
Yeah.
Nothing added there.
Yeah.
That's just.
All right. Page 16. All right, 11.03, Black Springs Community Association Delegates Report. Council note the delegates update from August, the August Black Springs Community Association meeting. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Tucker.
Yes,
Councillor Hayden.
just the monthly report.
Councillor Tucker.
Nothing to add. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? All in favour? Motion's passed. Oberon Arts Council recommendations 11.04 is received as information. Councillor Graham. Councillor Hayden, Councillor Graham.
Yes, the only thing to add to that, to the minutes and that you've got there is that they're looking forward to getting the grant for all the functions that they've proposed. Like everybody else, I think.
Through the chair, we can advise that today or yesterday afternoon that came through. So
Well, that's
we'll be looking to keep that signed off and back to them as quick as we possibly can.
Gentlemen, the event that we've already held by the Fairgrounds Trust. Was that funded? Seeing they've already spent the money?
Through the chair, yes, it was. Good. But good on there.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
The seconder just needs to say something.
Oh, sorry.
Nothing further to add. I'm looking forward to the event.
Sorry, councillor Hayden. Any other comments? All those in favour? Right, unanimously. All right, item 1201, Black Springs Community Hall Committee meeting. Recommendation is that council endorse Sian Barron as a new member to the Black Springs Community Hall Committee. And 2, endorse the proposed MOU between council, Black Springs Community Hall Committee and the Black Springs Community Association Incorporated to support operations of the Black Springs Community Hall and accept the minutes of the meeting. Mover, councillor Hayden, the seconder. Councillor McCarthy, councillor Hayden.
Yes, the endorsement of Sian Barron, she was meant to be on that from the beginning, so she has asked to be listed because she was not in attendance at our first full committee meeting. The MOU has been done up and an agreement has been made between the BSCA and the Hall Committee so that we can have a more streamlined approach to the structure of the hall, etc. So I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Councillor McCarthy.
Pretty straightforward. It's just a concern when someone uses the hall out there and the cleanup and the rubbish. We organise the contractor to, does someone go out and take the bins away, or is it up to the fire of the hall, or what's the situation?
Yeah, through the chair, the responsibility firstly lies with the hire of the hall.
Okay.
And then if there are any remedy works need to be undertaken, then get a staff or a contractor. Now the MOU potentially someone from the association to be able to help and remedy that claim if there's a non-compliance, but generally that sits with the hire of the hall, that responsibility.
Okay, and there's a bond provided for the hall.
That's right, there's a security and cleaning bond that's taken on booking.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favour? Motion passed unanimously. Item 1202, local emergency management committee meeting and recommendation of the council received report 1202 as information. Moving second, please. Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Graham. Councillor McCarthy.
It's just a standard part of operation.
Councillor Graham. Report. Questions? Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one brief question on page 31, the final item. We talked about the lock gate on the road to Canal and Caves, which is for emergency vehicles, and it gives the code number. So now that it's in the business paper, anyone can know the code, and I'm wondering if that could be deleted or whether it needs to be changed.
I'll call Andrew Libra tomorrow and say he needs to add a digit somewhere.
Or alter it or something.
Well picked up.
Have you been down the news too?
Any other comments or questions? For the motion, all those in favour? And motion is passed unanimously. All those three, the Heritage Committee, and I'm going to break the recommendations down that are here. We'll do them individually. First recommendation is the minutes of the Heritage Committee meeting held on the 29th of August 2022 as received the information. Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Hayden. You happy with this?
Yeah, straightforward. Thank you.
Councillor Hayden. Anyone else? Move the motion, all those in favour? Item 1 is passed. The second item is that the Heritage Committee requests council to seek any funding opportunities available for the purchase and the redevelopment of the state heritage listed property known as Lindell Green at 2509 O'Connell Road, O'Connell. Do I have a mover and a second? No mover, no seconder.
I'll move it for discussion.
We have a seconder,
I'll second for discussion.
councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, this come from the floor and it was presented by several members and that's how it come through in this state. I think one way it's a bit selfish that that other grants can come up. And this indicates that it's got to be used for this. And I think at the moment, Lindell Green myself is a bit of a lemon. There's an advertised price at the moment. What you're going to do with it, how can you return the money? I know I'm the chairman of the thing and I've brought it through. But the opportunities aren't there to recoup enough money in the way that council needs to recoup. There's a lot of money to restore this building. I know from my own, when we used to attend it as a store, we used to walk up and down on the floor that's right against the road. I don't think that would have changed. So I think it's just a pig in a poke and a bottomless pit. So yeah, although we had this recommendation from the Heritage Committee, I don't want to see it distract from any other development or any other grants that council could secure for the whole of the community rather than just this one project. Thank you.
Councillor Trimble.
As with Councillor McCarthy, I did speak against this at the meeting. And I agree with him, we probably need to be seeking grants for the better community, the bigger community. I do understand the significance of Lindell Green, but I don't think it's an area that council should be placing itself or spending time trying to achieve a grant when the grants officer has many other grants to get that can actually impact the better overall community.
Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor McCarthy and Councillor Trimble in that we don't support this recommendation. I think it's well, there are other areas for grant funding that Lindell Green can apply for, but I think there's a lot of other areas as well that we would get better value out of and improving some of the other heritage items in and around town as well. So, I can't support it. I think it's just a millstone and a waste of money.
Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with all three previous speakers, but I was intending to use the phrase bottomless pit, the same as Councillor McCarthy did. Particularly for the refurbishment, it could just potentially go on forever. And the only thing I want to add is that particularly in this instance where there's no particular identified purpose for it at the end, so I'm opposed to.
Any others?
Could I
Councillor
seek an amendment to the wording of that?
Yes, you can propose an amendment.
That council will not be seeking any funding opportunities for the environment.
Yep.
This is the opposite of the motion.
Yes, that's not quite.
So can't put something,
Just let it go.
just let it go.
We won't vote.
You can't have.
We have to have an alternate motion.
Yeah.
And the way this is going, it's just gonna,
I'm just trying to get rid of it.
it's all right. I think we've done that. Do you want to have a say, Councillor Graham?
I agree. It's the bottomless pit part is and you need to get another grant to do the upkeep and the maintenance of it. It would be never ending.
All those in favour of the motion? Against? The motion is lost. unanimously. And I go to paragraph, there's item 3, that the Heritage Committee requests council to seek funding opportunities through council's grants officer for the repair to the Black Springs Cemetery. Mover and seconder. Councillor McCarthy,
I'll second the conversation because there's no clarity in it.
Councillor Hayden, Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, this come about from one of the people and it's the old Black Springs Cemetery in the forest that's fallen apart. The wombats have got underneath it, so there's a fair bit of work there, more than just what's highlighted here. I think some of the remedial work can be done by the prison fund. But I don't know how you address it long term. I think you're gonna have a 5 or 6 foot fence in the ground to stop the wombats from coming through. And I didn't declare an interest, but it's Johnny Foley's grave that's been the worst affected, the bush ranger. So yeah, but I don't know how you're going to address it. Unless you got-
I don't support this in its entirety. I just move for conversation. I don't support that we seek funding. I think if the Black Springs Old Cemetery, White Springs Cemetery want to seek grants, then they need to have themselves listed as a heritage cemetery and go from there and do it through that avenue and create their own committee as such. Because they're seeking this out through both the Black Springs Community Association and through the Heritage Committee, so.
Anyone else? Councillor McCarthy, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There may be an opportunity for the Heritage Committee maybe there are grants available for memorials from a different source. It may fall under that if there are historical graves or headstones. I think it's probably capped at somewhere around 10,000. We're probably talking multiples of that, but it may be worth asking a question for.
My view is that we don't really know what we need to be applying for grants for, and until an organisation defines what they want to do, seeking a grant is really not worth it. So if there's no more.
I do have one little thing to add, if I could. There is in fact out there a big board that actually has all of the grades listed on there, so it's already got its monumental stuff that's currently done.
Okay. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? And the motion is lost. 6-1. And we'll now move on to 1204, Common Working Party. Recommendation is that 1, council receive item 1204 and support the commentary provided in the minutes, and quotes be obtained to have a contractor undertake the construction work for the Living Treasures project. Mover and seconder. Councillor Hayden. Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to support the recommendation, and I think this project's been sitting for a while, and we really do need to chase it up now that the weather's warmed up a little bit.
Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, I agree with that part, but the Rosewall construction is another one, and we need to define what's going on there, because I thought the council designed the footings, and then we've added a path, and you know we need to know and get someone to build this thing. I honestly think the weather's changed enough so that we can remove the old sleeper wall and get on with it. Batter the bank back if we have to.
So through the chair, that we do have a contract with the builder that will chase up the footings and the requirements within that, and get back to council as to where that is.
But it's been modified, hasn't it? The foundations that were originally designed for the wall now become a path or something.
Yeah, they're included as part of the path.
Yes, so we've got that design.
Yes, as far as I'm aware.
We've got the length. There is, no, yes, through the chair, there is information that we can submit to the, as part of that project, yes, we have. Thank you.
Through the chair, the common master plan would dictate the length of the path. That. That's it.
Yeah, okay.
Any other observations, questions? For the motion, all those in favour? Motion passed unanimously. 405, the Oberon Sports Facilities Committee, and the recommendation of the minutes of the Oberon Sports Facilities Committee held on the 10th of August 2022 are received with as information. Movement seconder. Councillor Hayden. Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, no, it's a good report, nothing further, Dave.
Councillor McCarthy.
It's a good report, but as you see highlighted in here, the number one oval over there on the League Club rec ground is not up to standard to play football. We still haven't got our new facility approved yet. So we could have still well in excess of 2 seasons to play over there. And I think we have been asking for, from what I know, over 7 or 8 years. It's when Mr. Carney was general manager. That yeah, we should be looking towards supporting them in any way we can to get a better lighting system on that number one player. Even if it's only taken then to the new facility or whatever. It's easy enough to make a footprint of the columns and relocate them. Yeah, that's one of the things that's coming out of it. Thank you.
Councillor Turnbull.
Yes, we support Councillor McCarthy's comments around having to do something with the lighting. It's becoming an issue. It's starting to become, I think that's the second meeting we've been to, we really can't provide any real update of where we're going with the new facilities. And it was a good meeting, there was lots of attendance, but it always comes back to where are we at? We're going to do this and we need to fix what they've got now because sport is a big part of the town. And we can't just keep saying, well, it's going to get built. So I'd like to see something happen.
Any other comments, questions? Put the motion on favour. Motion start. Traffic advisory local committee meeting. And we have some alternate recommendations which reflect a request from councillor Tucker. I don't want to let it no. Okay, sorry, this one. No? Okay. Okay, that's the alternate recommendations that are up there. The reason they were changed was, as I said, to satisfy a request from councillor Tucker, which I think is perfectly reasonable. So we have a recommendation in 4 parts. One is report 1202 has received information that the Oberon Street Festival traffic management plan be supported as submitted. The council installed no stopping signs on the northern side of Oberon Street adjacent to the Military Museum, and Creek Street and Carrington Avenue giveaway signs both be replaced with stop signs. So the movement in second place. Councillor Tucker. Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to briefly explain the reason for or the reasons for presenting it that way rather than what was in the business papers. Firstly, it's a requirement in the guidelines of the traffic committee that council should specifically resolve any decision. Secondly, it makes it a lot clearer and it makes it a lot easier in the event that any councillor wants to amend or oppose any of the recommendations. It's a lot easier if they're listed like that than trying to identify what to come out of the health minutes that they wish to impose. Obviously, I was at the meeting and happy to support that recommendation.
Councillor McCarthy.
pretty straightforward when you read into it.
Any other comments?
I just have a question if I could.
Yes, go ahead.
Why do we need a stop sign in Fred Street?
Councillor.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Mayor. The decision on whether there should be a giveaway or a stop sign depends on the site distance of any particular intersection. And on both those approaches coming along Creek Street, the site distance available is a lot less than is required to leave the giveaway signs. You virtually have to stop to be able to see traffic coming along Carrington, and therefore it fits in with the guidelines for where it should be post posters.
Thank you, Councillor Tucker. Any others? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against?
I'm in favour of the others except for the giveaway stuff.
We didn't, they weren't separated.
No.
No. So you vote against? Right. Motion's passed. 6-1. Item 1301, the full park stabilisation services tender 2022/8. The recommendation is that we nominate the open tendering method as prescribed in accordance with clause 166B of the local government regulations 2005, seeking rates for both full service and or partial stabilisation service options for a period of 2 years from 1st of November 2022 to 31st of October 2024 to assist in the delivery of these works in accordance with tender T 2022/8. And 2, on completion of the mandatory 21-day tender period, a further information report will be provided to council for tender determination. I think that must be not information report. It's just a further report. Just make that my amendment.
It's an informative.
Yeah. Do I move a second to Councillor Hayden? Councillor McCarthy? Councillor Hayden?
Yes, this is a requirement over a budget, so yes, I'm happy to move them.
That's straightforward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm certainly not opposed to going to contract for their services or stabilisation, not something that it's practicable for us to do in-house. And just after some explanation, because I'm still confused following the discussion last month relating to Rosemount Road. So last month we were told we couldn't use the plant hire panel because it was a single project where the payments might exceed 250,000. But now we're proposing to invite tenders, and this would cover multiple projects over 2 years. So I would like to know, is it intended that we would just select a single vendor from this process to do all of those projects, or will there be a panel? And if any one of those projects might exceed 250,000, does it mean we would then need to recall new tenders just for that project?
Through the chair, certainly in the view, if it was to exceed $250,000, yes, on one specific spend, it has that potential to bring it back through another tendering process. This is designed as an accumulative type scenario because it's not in our selective tendering panel as a facility to actually utilise at this stage. So on a number of projects as mentioned there, from road maintenance council contracts and some of the larger ones that we with the grant funding, this type of facility and stabilisation will be utilised throughout a lot of those projects, and where the cumulative expenditure will certainly exceed council's 150 threshold and also the 250,000 threshold on a per annum basis. So again, it's subject to the nature of a project, where there may be benefit then to go out and re-tender for a one-off, not dissimilar to Rosemount Road, would be where we'd be looking at going through that process.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Passed unanimously. Item 1302. Development application 10/2022.44.1. Addition to dwelling at 32 Bly Street. I guess my recall this was deferred from last month. Recommendations of council vary part C55, the building height plane of its current DCP 2001 in relation to development application 10/2022-44.1 for alterations and additions to a dwelling at lot 4, section 63 in DP 758805, being known as 32 Bly Street, Oberon. And that a revision be called in accordance with section 375A of the Local Government Act of 1993. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Pemba. Councillor McCarthy.
I have no problem with it. The statement on page 56 says it all. Development application was notified and no submissions received, so I'm happy with the report. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Pemba.
I'm exactly the same, happy with it. I've looked at it once before, very minor to what's happening. No one's has made any objections to it. So I think it should just be approved.
Yeah, any other comments? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Motion is passed unanimously. Item 3, Item 1303, the Oberon Renewable Energy Action Plan. The recommendation is that council endorses the Renewable Energy Action Plan undertaken by the 100% renewables and use the document for future renewable initiatives. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Hayden.
Yeah,
Councillor Trimbar.
yeah, I'm happy to move the report. I would like to add that there's a little bit of a typo at the top. There's an L missing. And, yeah.
Then you're
Councillor Trimbar.
I'm really happy with this and second, I think it's a great initiative and glad to see that that we're on the front foot there with using renewable energy.
Any other comments?
Sure.
Yeah.
So as the report highlights, this was an initiative that was done through our joint organisation and the Department of Planning and Infrastructure and Environment. So council had the opportunity to look at strategically placing an energy action plan, and the results are what you see in the attachments provided.
All right, any other comments? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? The motion is passed unanimously. 1304, the community hub update. The council note the updated progress report provided by Central West Project Manager. Approve the removal of the proposed CTC internal wall within the library precinct of the hub facility for the reasons outlined within the report. The mover and seconder, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Graham. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation of the report. I mean, if I didn't approve of the removal of the wall, there's no chance we're gonna have to put back up now.
Wrong
It's
wall,
fine.
wrong wall. This is one to be constructed.
Approve the removal of the proposed seat. Oh, one of the
Yes.
plan.
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've actually quite a better use. Thank you, that will allow.
Thanks.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, on page 65 in the top paragraph, it says it's noted that change has no effect on the budget for the development. I just want to be quite clear. Does that mean that the removal of that northern wall and therefore needing to fully rebuild it, does that mean that's being done with no extra cost from the contractor at all? Or does it mean there is an extra cost, but it's within the contingency?
General Manager.
Through the chair, my understanding is that it's being done at no extra cost.
Thank you. Second question, the contingency amount back when we approved the project started at about 210,000. I'm wondering if any of that has been committed so far, whether there has been any variation requiring extra expenditure.
Through the chair, not at this point.
Thank you. And last question, the removal of that internal wall, ETC, will that result in any cost saving?
Through the chair, it's hope so, because you're not going to put it there if it was otherwise supported. So it's also the infrastructure that goes, there's some PowerPoints and that sort of stuff that will
So
will be
that's
redistributed.
waiting for the contractor to come back with a price adjustment.
Yeah, that would be the case on the basis of council support that would need from that.
Yeah. Thank you, that was almost me.
Just one question, because I noticed that on page 66, we talk about a mobile approach to the CTC and going to village. Would that be formalised into just a statement that maybe we'll do it? Is it something that we will actually action?
Yeah, through the chair, it's something that we've certainly found through COVID, and also even the transition of the library now, that there are quite unique advantages to have a mobile service where we would take that to the appropriate communities at the time. So more than likely it will come back in a policy procedure or commitment from council.
Any other councillors? Motion, all those in favour? Passes, the motion is passed unanimously. Item 1401, report for information. And this is the general manager's monthly activity report. The recommendation is that 1401 is received as information. Move to second, councillor Hayden. Councillor Trimber, councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy with the report.
Very happy with the record.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, a couple of questions. Page 78 talks about land development opportunities and investigations being undertaken to look at opportunities to release further land. Is that further land on top of what we've discussed previously with the residential and industrial subdivisions, or is that referring to those?
That is referring to those opportunities, yes.
Right, thank you. On page 80, in relation to physical damage allegedly caused by road conditions. So my understanding that if council wants to use a defence against claims like that, that we need to have a formal road inspection program in place, and that certainly did happen for many years. Is that still happening, that where it's formalised and records kept of regular road inspection?
Through the chair, that forms part of this
Yeah, so that
opportunity.
is still.
It forms part of the claim, yes.
Yeah, good, thank you.
And
So-
just for further clarification, where it doesn't, they refer to our insurer, who do that and further assessment themselves to for further clarity should they arise that way.
So who does those inspections these days and how often?
Through the chair of Sunthrower Engineering Department.
Through the chair, so with the overseas, certainly if there are issues on the network, they're identified through the process in terms of rectification work and the like.
And records kept of all of those inspections.
That's right, other than the CRM system that comes through.
Through the chair, WHS manager has a robust system when it comes to these sort of things that we tick and we provide appropriate action and reporting.
And final question, still on that same topic. Could you provide some idea of how many claims were received for what sort of amounts? Are they sort of minor? Have they all been denied? Have any been paid? And is that decision on whether to approve or deny them, is that done by council or by the insurers?
Through the chair, the defence on using that provision is council's defence. We've had 3. And my WHS coordinator has indicated that we might get between 1 and 3 a month, depending on what it is. And at this point in time, with road conditions the way they are and everyone chasing their tail, they're more prevalent than what they normally would be.
I take it that most of them are minor, like stone chips or damaged tires. and stuff like that.
Rings,
Same
those
as
sort of things, yes. There has been one where there's been a claim against an accident. And it's been referred to our insurer.
Thank you, that was almost you.
Just one thing, I noted in here in your report about the new website, Gary. And I think that, Sharon and her team could be congratulated. Yeah, I know it was a soft launch, but, it's looking fantastic and I've had a good look around and it works really well. So, good work.
Through the chair, it's something that they need to be commended for. I'm very happy with the soft launch and we're going to give it a couple more weeks and then hopefully hard launch it at the October council meeting. If there's such a word.
Great work. Round of applause.
Any other questions? Councillor McCarthy.
Out on the Campbell's River Road, we lost a part of the machinery that uses for road construction. There's been no replacement of it yet today. What are we doing about that? The dog of a truck?
Yep. So we're looking for a replacement of that piece of plant. Our staff have been looking at trying to get a replacement for that piece of plant within the budgeted write-off figure that we got for that bit of plant, but we're just not seeing any that meet that mark. So we're still doing some investigation, but we may need to bring a report back should there be any additional funds required with the replacement of that.
This, what I'm getting at is this incident happened a fair while ago, and we're coming into our road building season. And we need that plant utilised or hire another one or something like that, but you know, we seem to have that vehicle running around unutilised, that's all.
Noted.
Okay, thank you.
Any more? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Motion's passed unanimously. Item 1402. Monthly activity report for planning and development. Recommendations of 1402 is received with information. Mover and seconder. Councillor Hayden, Councillor Tucker, Councillor Hayden.
Yeah, I'm happy to move the report, a good report. I hope the common skate park barbecues get into use now that the weather's climbed up a little bit.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, no questions, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McCarthy.
Just wondered, the director on the 86, the primitive camping ground. I understand that the disabled access and all that hasn't changed for a considerable amount of time. And the one that we're using as a footprint from up at the showground would be still compliant. And we've only asked for more space in the actual building, no more facilities. But where are we up to and when do we start work up there?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor McCarthy. As I mentioned in the report there, we've just received the on-site wastewater design. So that will now form part of the request for tender or request for quotes going out to local contractors for building works. So once that goes out and you can advise them who a preferred contractor is, and we can get underway.
So what's the building going to be comprised of? Tilt panels or what's on similar construction to what's up the showground or what?
Through the chair, correct, similar construction to the showground. But as you mentioned, we're increasing the sizes to support compliance. So that final design and the on-site wastewater will form part of the request for quotations going out. I anticipate that to be happening in the next few weeks.
So it's ready to go now or
Through the chair, be close to going out the request, yes.
Okay.
It's not finalised, but it'll be close.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take that on notice and follow up with the project manager and vice council.
Okay, it's just that we've had that money since January, that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? For the motion, all those in favour? Motion passed unanimously. Item 1403, monthly activity report for technical services, and the recommendation is that item 1403 is received as information. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Pemberton. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, it's a good report. I'm glad to see, a lot of the work that's been happening, and after our works committee roundup, we got to see a lot more than we usually do, and, yes, good report. Thank you.
Pemberton.
Yes, good report, and I'm the same after taking a trip around the roads, gave us a much better appreciation of all the work that is done and how good our roads are. Compared to some of the other LGAs, that's good. My one question though is that APAC part where it seems to just be an issue of getting anyone to come and have a look at it.
Through the chair, thank you. Through the chair, I certainly understand the frustration and concern. We are in negotiation or contact with a local contractor currently who has declared has an interest in actually doing something for us. So yeah, look, we're certainly having one meeting here next week with that particular contractor.
The only reason for my question was, should we review it and look at an alternative if you weren't finding someone, but if you're meeting with someone, that's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, I would advise council accordingly.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions in relation to Noonan's Hill Road on page 92. So I know it was mentioned in the GM report as well that there was a meeting with a neighbouring landowner. And I note also that the capacity of the new culverts is more than it was before, but I'm just interested as to whether the new height of this new structure, what is that in relation to the former height of the old structure? Has that changed and has it potentially caused any problems for that?
Yeah, through the chair, certainly the old structure was removed and there were a number of pipe culverts in under that structure, which I think that did lend itself to additional capacity and flow. Again, when we remove those and in a level base, we've gone down to bedrock as much as we can in order to level for certainly the box culverts. It was raised probably between 1 and 200 at maximum.
That's the finished road level.
To level for the ground plates for the box culverts to sit on. So other than that, yeah, really unimpeded water flows, but again, was the concern perhaps that there was a damming effect upstream, and there's been a lot of water since November of water coming out of the dam. Certainly hasn't helped in contributing to fully comprehend, I suppose, the impact. Yes, there was evidence to say perhaps the water is sitting wider than it normally would. Again, we've awarded another 6 culverts which are at site today and actually have been installed as of today. So there's more cross-sectional volume in under that to address the concern by the neighbouring resident there adjacent to the work. So again, we don't know what the net effect is. We have seeded those additional culverts down deeper as much as we could. Again, the bedrock challenges, and it's really now a matter of yes, that intent and hope that it will certainly resolve that matter.
Thank you. And my second question is still on that same project. So originally there was 80,000 was allocated for it. So I'm interested to know that I recall it was stated at the previous meeting that we were likely to be over budget, and I assume that'll be even more the case now. So what is the current expenditure and how much further cost will be added by installing these additional cells, and where are we proposing that the additional money over the 80,000
through the chair? So at this stage, through the environmentally affected roads program, as well, I mentioned to council previously where funding has been allocated from at this point in time. The additional 6 culverts are around the $17,000 mark to have them delivered to site. Again, the installation which we've put in today, it would be in the magnitude of 100 to 110. I'm guessing by the time the total project is done. Again, bearing in mind that we've had a number of inundation events, unfortunately, given the weather, the way it has been. So at this stage, without that final wash up and certainly infantry walls being poured, I envision it around the $110,000 mark.
So the original 80 was out of roads maintenance. So you're saying that the additional over the 80 will come out of the environmental.
It's through the chair. The original 80 was out of the local roads and community infrastructure fund that we put to the environmentally affected roads fund. The additional monies that would be proposed, there are a number of opportunities to source that fund, including the $1 million that council was afforded under the natural disaster fund, which this would quite easily fall under. So that additional monies is being looked at in that area rather than a takeout of the maintenance budget that we've had allocated for the 22-23 years. So there are a number of opportunities that I don't think I'd like to see come out of the environmentally affected roads component that council's already endorsed, but there are a number of other options that are available to us. I'll just add to that. I was at that meeting that we had, and we had a fairly robust discussion about different things and the way the landform looks. What has to be taken into consideration is the amount of sediment that has come from natural land through additional flows that we've had that have accumulated in that area as well. Whilst we're not saying that is the form of what it is, we believe that the wider the culvert, the more water can go under it, and simply using that analysis is how we look to address the problem.
And I assume we won't be able to complete the wing walls until after the dam stops overflowing.
Let's hope not, because I think that the contractors out there putting the wing walls back on the end of the bridge at this point in time. So we're looking to finalise that project as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Councillor Carter.
Yeah, Baldridge Road and Swallows Nest Road bridges, a great upgrade for their community. Gives people an alternative. Sometimes when you're blocked in and you've got to get out some other way, or for whatever reason, it gives you that alternative and a good road. As you see, that road up through there to Mount David was in good condition after our staff had graded. The other one was I had here. Humphreys Road. I know it's failed again, and when work's not so, when we haven't got so much large work on, I think we might need to bite the bullet and go back and put a base in this road. A lot more culverts across there. As you can see, the owners of the ground there have put a large amount of dams right up against the road, which keeps the ground wet. I think we really need to go back in the dry times, just leave the road for now. But when it dries out a bit and work's not so frequent, that we need to go back and have a look at this road, maybe put a base in this road. The road was done by contractors, but I think it needs a lot more piping, and especially seeing the so many dams keeping the ground moist. Anyway, thank you for the report. The Dart Street. It looks like we're underway, and the contractor's on site, and looks like they're doing a good job. Thank you.
Any more? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. 1404. The activity report for corporate services and the recommendation of the report item 1404 is received as information. Councillor Hayden, Councillor Graham. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, it's a great report. I did have a question regarding staffing at the Visitor Information Centre. What has happened there?
Yes, through the chair, we just recruiting a new visitor information officer.
We haven't lost anyone.
One of our staff and taking a working holiday.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. No, it's interesting to see what's coming up. It's going to be very busy from now till the end of the year, isn't it? One question, the hospitality youth skill program. Has any interest?
Through the chair, at this point, there's been no enrolments. So we are re-pushing at the promotional elements of that and seeing what avenues we can drive to drum up some local support to participate in that program. So like you, we're very keen
It would be a shame
to get,
if nobody took up that opportunity. So it's a
Absolutely.
really good one. No, that-
Thank you. I'll come back after. Anyone else got any comments? Observations? Councillor Hayden?
Yeah, just to follow up on that youth hospitality skills program, we had this mentioned through at Opta as well, and we weren't aware that this was still running with the last lot of discussion, so there could be a possibility for the Open Business Tourism to also help try and get some applicants. I know that there are 2 young people that are looking to actually do this, so.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I know the answer to the question I'm going to ask, but the outstanding balance in rates, there's a $4.5 million in the table, and quite a large sum that we could use. But I assume that's because people take advantage of the progress payments and the quarterly payments. But it's still, there's a lot more. We're halfway through only one payment, so I do know the answer. But my other question was, should we look at an incentive for people to pay upfront to try and get the money in early so that we can use it, or we can get the benefit of it now that the interest rates are on the rise?
And through the chair, I'm going to say, can we watch this space, because we propose to bring back some work in this space around that rate revenue where we sit, and it's a really good question to pose to council when we have that conversation.
That's all, thank you.
Any more? Put the motion, all in favour? Passed unanimously. 1405, statement of investments. The council received report 1405 of information. For Hayden. Councillor Trembath. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, it's a good report. Pity the rates wouldn't go up, but this or this. I have nothing to add.
Yes, in some ways that arrow going up is
Yeah.
a good thing.
It should be fair for everybody.
Okay, anyone else? Put the motion, all in favour? Passed unanimously. 1406, monthly grants updates and recommendation 1406 to receive this information. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Trembath. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, happy to see this report, it's a thorough report, and let's hope the grants keep rolling.
Councillor Trembath.
Yeah, nothing further to add.
Any comments, questions? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? 1406 is passed unanimously. 1407, which is the water and sewer plant report, and recommendations of 1407 to receive this information. Councillor Hayden. Councillor. Okay. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, it's a good report, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question, page 109, third paragraph down, where it talks about the stage 2 cleaning of the raw water pipe from Oberon Dam with a water treatment plant. I think I'm right in saying that that's not actually a council asset, that pipe, so I assume we had to liaise with Fish River Water Supply to get the okay to clean that, and but I assume we are paying for that. Has there been any suggestion that they might pay or contribute to that cost?
Through the chair, I was at a customer advisory group and advised them they'll be sending them the bill. From our perspective, we did not have a choice, because what's the point in doing a clean and then and not having the bit that enters the site clean. It's interesting to note that Water New South Wales do not have a budget to do exactly what we've just done. And
So
it's
what
very
was the
disappointing.
reaction to your offer of sending them an invoice?
I didn't, through the chair, I didn't care about the reaction I was going to do.
Yeah, I mean, do you expect it will be paid?
I'll take that on notice and advise accordingly.
If they pay it, if it says it'll be paid.
That's correct.
Do we have any results on that claim? Evidence of contamination within that part of the bottle?
Through the chair, I think that we provided like some pictures and evidence of what in fact was in that pipeline, and it was reasonably
I would
to
expect
severely.
I was questioning more around it, we recorded.
Yes, we did. And through the chair, they were also tabled at that same CAG meeting that I went to.
Excellent. You must have been very popular.
I generally am when I go to that meeting, Mr. Mayor.
Any more comments from anyone? Put the motion, all those in favour? Passed unanimously. 1408. Monthly update on council resolution and recommendations report 1408, which is stated information. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Tucker. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, happy to move the report. I do have a question on page 116, 117, where the matter's ongoing for the reconnecting regional communities. Is that now complete, or is that still ongoing?
And through the chair, I think I indicated earlier that we've been given the go ahead for those projects. It was just at the time of writing this report, it wasn't.
Councillor Tucker.
No questions, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Unanimous. 1408 is passed. No urgent business. In accordance with the Local Government Acts of 1993 and the Local Government General Regulations 2005. In the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind as referred to in section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a part of the meeting closed to the media and public. You stop recording, please. Mr. Quinnell at 7:18 PM. Now back at. Open council is resumed at 7:40 PM. I advise that the following resolutions were made while the meeting was closed to the public, and there were no members of public present. The Oberon water treatment plant membrane filtration replacement tender T 2021-16. Resolved that council accept the tender submission from the Enviro Pacific Service in the amount of $504,222 GST inclusive for the supply and installation of replacement water filtration membranes at the Oberon water treatment plant located at the water plant Lane, Oberon. The council delegated to the General Manager the authority to execute the contract document to allow the project to commence. With regard to item 1602, council resolved to that 1602 be deferred to seek further risk reduction. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, anyone who's still on Zoom, and thank you who is devoted, who's come back in to the council chambers. I declare the meeting closed at 7:41 PM.